I'd like to ask our three guests in turn, how do you see national identity and healthy patriotism? What does it mean to you, and how do you view conflict and war? Laura, let's start with you.
Firstly, when I'm thinking about national identity, of course it comes to the individual level. Where I am born, awareness of the environment where I'm born, the value system, territory, my family, my home, and also knowing your history. You knowing where we come from, knowing the sacrifices of the previous generations, including my parents and grandparents, who have fought for their freedom and independence, and we're not taking this freedom for granted. And I have been honored to born this kind of country where I have these possibilities of self-realization and I can do it. So this sense of responsibility is to kind of like, it might be conscious or unconscious, to maintain this, knowing where we're going, and if necessary also to fight for this. Fighting for this might be in various levels. Of course, when somebody outside want to attack you conventionally with weapons, you have no possibility to react. But in peacetime, there is any other possibilities where also me as a citizen can bring our country to the world. So it would be much less easier to swipe it off the map. It's starting the enterprise and I have all these possibilities. But yes, if it's the worst scenario, it is its citizens' role to also contribute this. And I think this would be the definition of the healthy patriotism, how we operate daily basis.
Thank you. Robert?
So I would like to tell you a story. Let's start with a story. Every good lecture starts with a story. I was a rather old combat officer when I realized finally what is the essence of war. What happened? I was supposed to take a Lebanese gentleman called Elias Hubeika. He was the security chief of Premier Bashir Gemayel. And I was supposed to take him from the Lebanese border as an intelligence officer, a liaison officer, and to escort him to meet our chief of staff. So we got to the chief of staff's office, and the head of the bodyguards told us to leave our weapons outside. And the Lebanese guy took out a revolver, a knife, a hand grenade, and a wire ring with all kinds of things on it. And I didn't realize what it is. And I asked him, Elias, tell me what the thing is. And he told me, oh, it's the severed ears of Syrian soldiers. So then it dawned on me that this guy with a $2,000 Versace suit, speaking Italian and French and English and educated at the Sorbonne and carrying a Patek Philippe watch, he's a cold-blooded killer, and this is war. This ring with the severed ears, this is war. Okay. And then all my illusions evaporated. So that's the story.
How do you see the question of national identity and patriotism?
I believe that in order to be a fully developed person, a person happy with himself, you cannot levitate in the middle of the space like an atom or a piece of dust, okay, a particle of dust. You have to be part of something. You have to be part of a family. You have to be part of a city. Okay, you have to be part of a nation. It's just like an onion, building all kinds of strata around you, protecting you. It obliges you to do all kinds of things for your family, for your city, for your country, but it protects you, and it develops you into a fully developed and fully content person.
Gáspár.
For me, the whole question is really interesting because I was 18 in 1990. So in 1990, when that time we had obligatory military service, and I was called by the military to admit for the first meeting. It was 2nd of September 1990, which means after the first free elections. And the military leaders, they didn't even know how to call me comrade or sir or what kind of title they should use to us. So it was a complete chaos and confuse about the whole system. And Then we went to the university, so I was part of the game, this cat and mouse game, how to avoid the obligatory military service that time, because we were young and all of us, we did believe that now we've freed up from the Soviet regime. There is the new world, we are going to join to the NATO, then we are going to join to the EU. So we arrived to the eternal peace, and there will be no challenge for us, security challenge. And I think it was a common, huge political mistake of the entire Hungarian political class, because everyone believed this. So the conflict zones were far away from us. Russia, the Soviet Union was falling apart. And even though that we experienced later the Yugoslav war, and I believe that none of you has any knowledge about it, how close we were at that time to be part of the Yugoslav war. But we had the public, the society had a feeling that we are far away. So the whole defense and the security issues were not in the focus of our political thinking. And then we started to reach the 21st century, and we have seen that the world is changing. And we faced with a society which lost the capability to think about it. We lost the capability to defend ourselves, and we started to think about it, what is going to happen if we have to defend our families, our brothers, our lovers, our kids, our neighbors, our community. So we had to start with a completely new thinking, and then we realized that the whole thinking inside of society is completely missing, especially the young generation, which it was not a challenge for the young generation. So that's a very tough job for us. I'm jealous for Laura because from their point, the world is completely different. They had to fight much more for their freedom, for their sovereignty. For us, I'm still thinking, what does it mean, these two words, for the major part of the society?
Well, maybe if we can bring it down to the personal level now of the question of individual responsibility, the citizen's responsibility. How do you view the role of the citizen in conflict, but also in maintaining, and picking up on Laura's point, maintaining security and stability during peacetime? So Laura, do you want to fire away first?
As long as we have conventional wars, for the last Russian aggression to Ukraine has showed it, that the real war, the similar war like it was in Second World War, similar war can be near our borders. And this was, I think, a big, for a huge part of the world who have lived in peacetime, it was some kind of wake-up call. But for us, Estonians, as we have, like I said, we have quite young country, and we are used to live near very aggressive neighbor. We had this knowledge and threat perception all the time, and that's why we have focused all the time to every citizen of our country will be ready for the worst scenario if it occurs. Of course, we're doing everything to prevent that, and that is also one part of security. For example, where I am contributing right now. This is I'm working in the defense sector, in MOD, but besides that, I'm a reservist. So basically, this we have created this big, I said, a carpet of security. For example, that's why this conscription model works very well for us, because it allows to big part of population to bring through the conscription, which is quite relatively short time, but you get the basic training, function, knowledge, how to survive, what to do, and you go back to the economy. And during peacetime, you're contributing to whatever field you like and helping Estonia through this. For example, peacetime, Estonia have developed quite far in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship and all this stuff. And our talented people are realizing their skills there. But on the other hand, we have this risk perception and this calm rationality that if everything goes totally worse, So we have this readiness. Every citizen have the readiness what to do. I think this would be the main perspectives of war and peacetime.
Thank you. Robert, I know that you have quite firm views on the issue of the citizen soldier. Will you care to sort of expand on that for us?
With pleasure. So I believe that from ancient times, the concept of the citizen was linked to 2 or 3 basic components. One of the components was participating. What is citizen? It's city. The root is city. You have to take part in the affairs of the city, the politics of the city. This is one of the tasks of the citizen. And the other task is to pay your taxes. Okay, this is the second task. And the third task is to serve your country, to defend your country, because there is nobody behind you. If you won't defend your country, there is nobody to defend your country. It was the same for the ancient Israelites. It was the same for Greece. It was the same from a Republican Rome, as it was the same for the Anglo-Saxon world, for the popular levies in the Wild West and in England, defending the city, defending the village. So it's the basic responsibility. This is one thing. The second thing is that I have found a correlation between whoever fights, he will rule. Okay, you can take even slaves, like the Janissaries in Turkey or the Mamluks in Egypt, and they were slaves. Okay, but slowly they have turned into the rulers of their societies. Why? Because they were fighting. So my punchline here is that if you won't fight, you won't rule. Okay, and this disconnect between the duties of the citizenry, participating in the political process, and not participating in the security process, defending your country, will lead us to lose our rights to participate in the political process too. We won't be citizens, we will be customers, and that's all.
Gáspár, your perspective, given that you're obviously in the Hungarian Ministry of Defence, your perspective on the responsibilities of Hungarian citizens towards the defence of Hungary.
Before I step into this answer, just let me share with you my experience. When I was 17, I had a chance to spend some time in a British secondary school in Ampleforth. And that time, it was 1989, and that time there was obligatory military education in Britain, 1989. Or if I come back to the recent days, then I have to tell you something. Maybe you don't understand. The extension of the NATO with Sweden and Finland is a huge change for the whole NATO environment. Because basically the 2 countries, they do have nearly around 50,000-60,000 soldiers per today, but in a week they put in service 350,000 soldiers, and in a month 2.9 million soldiers, which means that the society is fully committed to defend their countries. And going back to the Hungarian way of thinking, you have to understand something. We did believe that with the fact that we are joining to the NATO, everyone, I'm for sure if I'm asking who knows about the Hungarian Reserve Forces and who knows about the Article 5 in the NATO, then there will be much more hands in the air for the Article 5. Everyone believes that based on the Article 5, the NATO is protecting us. The bad news for you that the NATO is not protecting us under the Article 5. We have to protect ourselves, and we have to commit our resources to the NATO, and of course we can count on the NATO community, but we cannot raise our hands and give all the responsibilities to other nations to protect us. So it's the Hungarian mentality, for me, it's a little bit close to when you do have a family and you are starting to, a young couple, they are starting to buy their first new flats, some TVs, cars, whatever, and they don't put the lock on the door of the flat. So you have to provide the basic security. That's your must. If you are a political leader with a responsibility for your country, you must face with it. You have to provide the security, even though that maybe the people, they don't understand it, or they don't respect what you are doing for them. But you have to be prepared. And this is going, I can really give you lots of ideas about it, how the world economy is organized, how the world cooperation is organized. And what I do see that the military capability, the defense capabilities is always a key and essential approach for other nations, which was not part of the Hungarian, which I think it goes back to the Hungarian-Austrian Empire's time, but I don't want to extend this horizon so wide.
I did want to ask one specific question. You've all talked about the responsibility of citizens. Is being a conscientious objector still acceptable? Laura?
From Estonian perspective, I think it's not an option. We need to be aware, especially new generations. Nobody would do this defense for ourselves. We are forming this defense, and I think it's really important that every citizen are at least aware what is happening, aware of the threats, and also ready to contribute when something happens. And I think this awareness and readiness forms a very important tool of deterrence from outside, for every power outside who want to invade. Because as long as there are very strong collective unity among citizens, they are ready, they have high moral, and they know where they are, and they know what they want. So this is really important. So yeah, that's why I'm thinking that especially for Estonian perspective, we don't have this luxury to be like outstanding just watcher. And I really believe that we have many people most of the population are really involved of this, especially a rise crisis next to us.
Robert?
I believe that in every normal society you should give ground to people who don't want to carry arms. This is one thing. But the other thing is nobody exempt from paying taxes. Are there such people? There aren't such people. So it's the same for the service. You don't have to carry arms to serve your country. You can volunteer to work in a hospital, for instance, or do some logistical work, driving a tractor, a bulldozer, or something, or some of our power equipment. You don't have to carry arms. But I think that no society can accept somebody enjoying all the benefits of the society and not giving his or her part back.
Gáspár?
My personal view about this, because I had so many stories, and even in our school there was a very strong, in our secondary school group, which were resisting and not taking part in the military duty at that time. So what I can tell you, my approach is to defend our country, we need a very strong, united, capable armed forces. The brotherhood is absolutely unquestionable. So the ones who don't want to be part of it, it's better if they don't get in because they can destroy the spirit. And this is what I do believe. If someone doesn't want to take part from it, I can live with it because the spiritual harm they cause with the resistance is bigger than the advantage if they just sweep the garden or they do something which we don't need really. But for me, the most important, because what we do see, if there is a kind of war arriving into a country, then a part of the society is immediately escaping from the country. For me, the key question to convince them that they don't have to leave the country, just be there, do their daily job, be teacher, be whatever, nurses, whatever they do, it's good for the society. And if they don't want to join to the armed forces, then it's better if they are not coming because they destroy all the spirit of our armed forces. What we do see now in Ukraine, that how the country gathered together. It's good because I do believe that the bigger part of the country will unite it under an attack in Hungary also, because this is our history. When we are under pressure, then we come together very much. Till then, we are the most individualistic country in our nation, in whole Europe. But if there is a concrete pressure, then we really come together. So for me, it's not. It's better if they are not joining to the armed forces.
I think we have a question there. Hi.
The claim of this panel is, will you fight for your country, right? And my thought is, it's like not in every country you could actually choose to fight or not fight. So I want to hear your opinion about who do you think that actually should choose if the citizenship have to fight for the country, the citizenship themselves or a government? Because actually there is some country that you can't actually choose. So what is like the freedom of choice? Is by the government or the citizenship have to choose about that?
From Estonian perspective, when we have an armed attack against our country, then there is no other option this is the citizens' role to protect their country. And like as a small country like Estonia, we have this conscription is the one format or one model how we can train and use this as a reserve force. And I think this will remain the basis of this. The citizens' own will to defense, and as long as we have these conventional wars, we need to fight back, and there's no option for that.
I believe that we are talking about democratic societies. And just like in any democratic society, we send our representatives to make our laws. And if they decide by law that you should go to war, then you should go to war. And the only thing that you don't need to fight the war is to believe in it. Okay, I can tell you that I was serving for 3 years in Lebanon. I never believed for a second that it was efficient, good, practical from a military or political sense. But I did my service. Why? Because my nation sent me. Okay, out of obligation, and out of obligation for my soldiers. So your beliefs or your dreams are besides the point. You should exercise, you should accept the decision of your elected leaders and the laws of your country, just like respecting the traffic regulations or the paying your taxes or anything. What's special about it? There are no special exemptions from certain laws. You don't have to serve with weapons in your hands. You can do some national service. Okay, but you have to serve because this is what your nation decided.
I try to understand your question because for me that's a little bit weird because the government is not fighting. We are fighting. We as citizens are fighting for our community, for our families, for our country. The government gives you the structure, the framework, the political guidance, which is a common agreement of the citizens, because they elect the government. So the government shouldn't do something else. What is the common agreement of the citizens? For part of my life, I was trained in the US. And if you go to the US, you can experience that. They are not waiting the government to act in the US. They know exactly that they're responsible for their whole life. If you're not acting for your responsibility as a citizen of Hungary or as a citizen of Israel or Estonia, then no one will do it besides you. So that the government is not an actor in this manner.
Most of the audience here are, I think, probably Generation Y, Generation Z. Do you see a difference in perception of risk, of willingness to serve on the basis of generation? Now, obviously, each country is different, Hungary, Israel, Estonia, but let's talk about this on a generational aspect. Laura.
I myself are like this called millennial. So basically my parents were born in a deep Soviet Union time, and they were young during the Soviet Union time. So I was born 2 years after our regaining independence. So basically, I'm born in an independent country, but I have still heard many stories, very brutal experiences from my parents and grandparents, what was happening in the Soviet times and what was the repressions. But they were still like keeping this national identity, even like fighting physically or mentally, and they get out of this. So maybe this might be the reason why I'm more like connected to this value of independence. But of course, later generations who are born like later, and the war and the occupation and all this concept of freedom is much more far away and also in the globalized world. This is like we are more connected to the all over the world, so this might be a little more far. But in Estonian context, I still believe that firstly it comes from this aspect that we are living close to a very aggressive neighbor. So this whole threat perception has been always besides us. That doesn't mean that we are fearing it, but of course also later generations are well aware, and it has grown also after the war in Ukraine and the Russian aggression. And this really raised our citizens' will to defense. And of course, when we look back to the history, also in 2007, when in Estonia was a huge hyper attack from Russia, and Georgia, Crimea in 2014, all this time we can see that our citizen and population will react to that, and also the younger generation, and really interest to contribute to national defense, and this understanding that freedom is not for granted. This have coded, basically I think it's coded inside our DNA. I don't say that there isn't difference between generations, but still every citizen have their sense of responsibility still inside them. So.
Robert, I imagine that maybe for Israel, there isn't really a generational issue, given the fact that Israel has constantly been under threat for the duration of its history.
I believe that the main difference between the generation is that my generation, the older generation, considered it perfectly respectful to be a tank commander or a sergeant in the paratroopers. You don't have to be something very, very special. You have to do a decent service, and you got very much self-respect out of carrying the red beret. We got it from the British, our red beret. So it was a very, very great source of pride to be just a sergeant or just a soldier, an NCO in the paratroopers, not to be something special. Now, the new generation was told that everybody is special, you are each and every one of you is something special, Now, that's a problem. Because if everybody is special, you all need special units. Okay, there will be no problem enrolling people into the fighter pilots course or the naval commando or top-notch cyber units or all these things. But you will still need tank commanders and artillerymen and the proletariat of the war. You'll need them. Okay, then nobody wants to be just an ordinary grunt, or an ordinary foot soldier doing his duty. Everybody wants to be special. And now our responsibility is to make you feel special. Even if you are only driving a tractor or a bulldozer, we have to make you feel special. And that's a big challenge for us.
Gáspár, a Hungarian perspective, given we've got a war going on in your neighboring country.
Yeah, this is why we do experience that the life is changing among the young generation also. And we do have very good experiences from some of the universities where I do have an experience some months ago when on one of our universities, Budapest universities, our chief of defense got a big applause from the audience, from the students, and they told exactly the same word. What I do here in the US a lot of time, that thank you for your service, what you are doing on our border. And this was the first time in my life that I experienced such an event in Hungary. I'm not waiting from the young generation if there is not an imminent threat to understand the necessity of this whole world. We are not alone with this problem in the world, and this is why one of the key issues of the NATO is the so-called resilience. To put a lot of efforts and projects into the resilience, which is absolutely a not known word in the Hungarian at the moment. I'm fighting for it to get back the understanding of the resilience in the Hungarian public talks, because the resilience gives you some kind of awareness. You don't have to deal with it. You're young, you're doing your studies, you're funding your family, you are in love, you are going to party. I know this is much more important than to think about the security of the world, but you have to be aware, you have to keep somehow this issue in your brain, that this is very important. And once you are going to have kids, I'm for sure you will completely see the world in a different way. I do have 4 kids, so I do feel the everyday responsibility that what we are not doing today for your future, that will harm you maybe in 5 or 10 years very much. And I don't want to look into the eyes of my kids 10 years later, then they are asking me, so why you didn't do your daily work, your in a peacetime, when you had time and you had enough resources to do what you had to do.
Thank you. I think we've got another question there.
All of you substantiated quite well the need of the individual citizen towards the state, towards the world, maybe to protect it, to upkeep security, maybe in the way of enrollment. However, I very much agree that this is really the case in today's time, but Europe in particular has been moving fastly towards a more globalized state where maybe individual citizenship, the moral and or any kind of obligations of the citizen towards its respective state are much less important than before. How do you think this kind of thinking that you put forward will hold up in the future?
Yes, of course. We live in a globalized world, and we have much more interconnected world with other countries. But still, I believe that the national identity is still preserving, and we must maintain it. And it's not just in a government level who's saying that new generations and young people that you have to count on it. This is why I still that the perception of citizenship is still important, but because this is our home, this is our boundaries, and where we have born, and where is our value system. And we're thinking about globalization. It's pretty much related to also like a value systems which we have, and which values we fight for. So it brings me to that besides citizenship, it's also really important that we fight for our values and value systems where we want to live. And it's, of course, there are countries and nations are nowhere to lost, and we still have these responsibilities in our country. But in the other side, we have to think about in more general way in which values, in value system we want to live. And I think this might be the main takeout from here.
Thank you. Robert, a quick word on that, and then Gáspár as well.
I believe that you can live all the globalized lives you wish, but if somebody is shooting at you, it is a very local affair, believe me. Okay, I'm carrying the pieces of a Russian anti-tank missile in my body, and I was shot in the side through my bulletproof jacket, and it was a very local affair. It didn't hurt the Secretary General of the United Nations. Okay, it hurt me. Okay, and the people I was looking at them to save me and to help me were my comrades. Okay, people from I grew up with them in the same kibbutz in the same country, served in the same paratroop unit. Okay, so it was not something global, something theoretical. No, these things are very, very practical. Believe me.
I think instead of me, Ian, you could give much better answer for this, because there is a reason why Britain left the European Union, because to be in a globalized world on a political level, I'm not talking about the informational level, the economic, the financial level, the studies, whatever, what you experience, but on a political guiding level, where the political level is to express our intention, lobbies, our interest, how to organize our life. Still, the United States of America, which is a more united, it's one country we can say, but there are huge debates inside the country whether who is acting with whom interests, whether someone from Ohio in the State Department or in the Pentagon is acting more in the interest of Ohio than New Mexico. So there are strong debates, and at the moment I don't see the political level in the European Union where we don't have to fight for our interests. Because there are others in the European Union who are fighting for their own original country's interest, and I'm not blaming them because this is naturally their behavior. But we are far away from that to somehow establish a level of political responsibility or global responsibility for our security.
Gáspár, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, our time is now up. If you're willing to fight for your country, please raise your hand. I think I would still say 50-50. But listen, thank you all very much indeed. Let's please give a very big round of applause to our three guests.